Just a question.
Yeah.
Okay, we have Colonel Andre Dean here that's running for Congressional District 8 position. And what we're gonna do, I'm John Wirtz, Vetting Committee Chair, Montgomery County Tea Party. I'm with Pat Tibbs, Dennis Tibbs, Brian Crumby, Del Fessenden, Bob Bagley, and Larry Rogers. And so what we'll do is, if you like, go ahead and open up with an opening statement up to 5 minutes, and then we'll do a Q&A with answers up to 2 minutes, and then close it up about 55 minutes later.
Okay,
So with that,
Steve went over 55. You must have had a long conversation. So I know everybody here, so good to see you all. I think all of you heard me speak on some occasion or another, so it's not like this is a new piece for you to understand why I'm in the race, but let me go ahead and just rehash just a few pieces of it. I'm a 27-year Army veteran, served in the United States military for 27 years, 21 on active duty and 6 in the reserve component. I started as a private and worked my way through lieutenant colonel and retired, came home and found Kevin Brady was my congressman. And was pretty stunned to see that after 20 years, he was still serving as U.S. Congressman in a conservative district. And so I filed with the Federal Election Commission and started the paperwork so that I could begin the process of running. I just think we're at a time in the nation right now where many of us are absolutely convinced that our nation is in great jeopardy. And if you want to be angry and frustrated and scream, then you can do that. Or if you want to make a difference and say, I'm sick of this and I'm going to make a difference, and you can jump in and say, I'm going to run. And I offer my services as a retired Army Lieutenant Colonel. By the way, outside of Lieutenant Colonel Alan West, I know of no Army Lieutenant Colonel or full bird colonel or general officer who has run for United States House of Representatives in the last 10 years. I don't know of any. I know General Wesley Clark ran as a Democrat nominee back many years ago for president, for the office of the president. But generals don't run for House of Representatives. They don't run for Senate. They don't run for Congress. Colonels don't run. And you might be intrigued just to know why, but I know the reason why, and it is because this is considered a disgraceful profession. We live lives of honor, and we don't go into politics. Why? Because you're considered filth. You're considered dishonest because you're considered less than an honorable, respectable human being, which is the #1 reason why Colin Powell refused to run when he was very popular, had a chance to run, and refused to. So we don't run. Colonels don't run. We come out of the military and say it's been a great service. I'm going to retire with the honor and well-deserved respect that I garnished throughout my long and awesome career serving this great nation. And we don't jump back in. However, we're at a time when we're fixing to lose the nation. So Diane goes home and cries about every third night because this is hard for her. She's not dealt with the disrespect and the ugliness that's an underbelly of the part of the campaign. And then she says, but Andre, let's pray together, and if God still wants us to do this, we're going to do it. So we do, and we're making a difference. And we know we're having a huge impact. Right now, we're doing 10,000 contacts a week right now, directly, not my billboards, just direct stuff we're doing right now, because we are out nonstop, and we go from 7 in the morning most days, except yesterday was her birthday, so we did not. We go from 7 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock at night, like we did Saturday, with probably that day, I don't know what it was, 4,300, 4,500 contacts that day. It was huge. That's me personally shaking hands, handing cards to someone, getting in their hands to tell them Colonel Dean is running for the United States Congress. We're passionate about this. It doesn't matter if I win or lose. It matters that I run, and I run my whole heart, and that we make every effort we possibly can. We've been doing it for 9 months right now. The children have all canceled soccer games, soccer teams, piano lessons, after-school activities, because they know as a family we sat down and said, this is something we have to do, children. Our nation's in trouble. And your dad has the chance. God has prepared a path to lay before me that I can actually make a difference in my nation and serving my nation. Diane's 100% with me. That's why she's everywhere with me on the campaign trail, except for tonight when I said, honey, you're not going to come in anyways. I don't think they'll let you do anything. So she's working on Thanksgiving preparation tonight. She said, honey, good luck. Text me when you get through. But it's a passionate thing for both of us, husband and wife. I don't think you see that very often. You don't see a lieutenant colonel ever running for office, not for the House of Representatives. You don't see a husband and wife team hardly ever out that are going side by side and just as committed, both of us side by side. That's because we both have served this country for 27 years, and we know that selfless service has a place in politics. And as scummy as it may be, or as insulting as it may be, we turn the other cheek and say, it's okay, we're still making a difference, and we drive on. The difference should be that we need a conservative government more than ever before right now. We're fixing to lose the nation. Even if we do get a conservative government, it looks like we're on the verge right now of losing a great nation right now, because we have gone so far down the path of socialism, of fiscal irresponsibility, of apathy, of get along, pay along, of Kevin Brady style leadership right now, which is the absence of leadership. That's why we have this crisis right now with Speaker Boehner, with Kevin McCarthy, can't even get a confidence vote, and Kevin Brady as a deputy whip. He's not a leader. He doesn't inspire any kind of confidence, and he doesn't lead anything. He's just appointed chair of the House Ways and Means Committee, which is not leadership. I come from a leadership background. I understand the art of leadership. It's what I've done my entire military career, and it comes from the soul. And I'm grateful to be a candidate and I live in this wonderful, God-blessed land, and we still hope to make a difference, and we expect to win.
Okay, thank you.
And I have
Okay.
15 seconds left over. It's good.
Yeah.
We add that to my 2 minutes at
Absolutely.
the end.
Right there. Okay, during one of our, we were talking about kind of the little mini forum that you and Craig had, and you had indicated that you favor the penny plan, right?
I indicated then, and I still support it. You know, we had a debate Thursday night in Trinity County. It was wonderful, and I talked to the penny plan to many people, the 80 people who were there.
Okay, so explain what that is, and I think, from what I understand, it's taking a penny from every government agency until you zero balance the budget, right, from that standpoint. And if that's the case, doesn't that keep bad government agencies in place?
You ready? Okay, so the penny plan. Introduced by Connie Mack, a congressman from Florida. 79's co-sponsors to the bill. Ted Cruz has come on board with it. Rand Paul has come on board with it. Ben Carson has come on board with it. Sean Hannity promotes it left and right. The plan is that you freeze everyone's budget. What you're trying to do is say, how can we do something to change instead of nothing? Because you try the big changes and nothing happens. There's so much resistance, you cannot get it. You can dream it. You can say, I'm going to shut down Ted Cruz, I'm going to shut down 5 departments. He named 4 of them because he said Department of Commerce twice. Kind of fun, but but the real truth, this is very hard to shut those departments down. We have tried since Reagan to shut down many departments, and we have not shut down a single department, no matter what the rhetoric is. So Connie Mack comes up with an alternate plan, which is 1 penny of every $1 is simply trimmed off the budget. And how do you do that? You don't do the 6% growth. You lock the normal, every budget gets about a 6% growth every year, and that's considered no increase in spending. But you lock it back beyond that. You simply get the consensus that the nation's in crisis, and you say, froze a budget, minus 1%. And then you lock it down, and you build backwards from there. And over 10 years, it's $7.6 trillion by holding that simple line. What that does is it lessens the terrible impact of complete dependency on government and the tens of millions of Americans who have bought into the horrible system that will cause panic in the streets at some level if you go too drastic at any one given moment, or it causes such hysteria that you can't get any support from it on the other side. So you're looking for a reasonable answer. What can you do to make a difference to scale the budgets back? I still think the Department of Education and the IRS have got to go. That's $200 billion, and I think those are easy ones, but I think the many other ones are very, very hard for us to get to. So penny plan, 10 years, $7.6 trillion, you balance the budget and you start paying back the debt. It is a reasonable plan while you kill the Department of Education and you kill the Internal Revenue Service on a 3-year phase out. I think those are doable plans.
Okay.
Very good. Please list all rights which non-citizens are entitled to.
Okay, so it's one of the questions you asked on the handout that came to me over the weekend. And the due process clause, I think, is that you can't rape somebody because they're here visiting. You can't rape somebody because they're here on an illegal immigration status, so they have no rights, and so they're dirt and they're less than human beings. So America has of course the courts have kicked these things all over the place and what the current interpretation of the rights are according to the Supreme Court. But I think my reading of the Constitution is that every human being has the right to fair and equal treatment under the law, but not, it's the privilege of being a human being, and you have these privileges that are protected. Rights I think the citizenship piece is the rights part in my heart and soul when we look at this part. And so what are the rights of an American citizen? The right to vote, which is being challenged in the federal courts right now, so the illegal aliens can now vote because they're going to get the right to vote. It's the right to medical care. Well, where's that right come from for an American citizen? And now it's a right being extended to all illegal status personnel in the country. Every right that's given to an American right now, the Democrats are trying desperately to turn it into a right under the Constitution, under the Supreme Court, to say that everyone who is here in America should have those rights. And I think we could just go back to the due process clause, which is everybody has a right to equal protection of the laws and due process under the laws. But you don't have the right to anything as a foreigner here except to your safety, your personal safety, and a visa card that expires, and you get the right to be deployed. You get the right to be deported back out of the country. We've gone too far on the kindness and gentleness that used to be the great grand hallmark of America. Like all Christians, if you are too kind and too gentle and too turning the other cheek, you will lose all your freedom. Someone will abuse you for that privilege. If you are not harmless as a dove and wise as a serpent, you are a Christian who will be abused, and someone will have to stand up and protect you, or you will be dead.
You know, this, lots of plans, like the penny plan and others, make a lot of sense. You'd think that folks would love them. Most people that run for some office say they love them and they're gonna do it. But when they get up there, year after year, decade after decade, nothing happens. Are all those people just corrupt, or is there some way they reprioritize things when they get up there, or is somebody buying them off, or why do things never get done? And how long are you gonna be up there before you start showing some material support for those kind of issues?
Yeah, so Dennis, the corruption question always is out there. Look, I don't want to judge the hearts and souls of wonderful people who seek public office for the right reasons and really have a heart to do good. There is no question that the longer you're exposed to Washington, D.C., the more you are corrupted by a system. Even wonderful, good, strong-willed people are destroyed over time by the money and by the power. How do you avoid that piece? One of the pieces is you simply say there have to be term limits, and we've blown it. And it's not the lip service piece. It's what's a reasonable answer for term limits. If you get term limits in office, and I know that I'm only going to be there a maximum of 8 years or 12 years, which I wrote down. If it's 6 years, I don't care. I care that it matters that there are term limits, and that every congressman who goes up there knows he's we the people, and he's not going to answer to Washington, D.C., because he's going to come home to his people in 6 to 12 years, whatever it is. He's coming home by law. We had a 22nd Amendment. It was for the President of the United States. At that time, we should have been a little bit smarter and said, it's not just the President. I don't know how big the fight was to get, okay, let's just, we really do need to fix this, don't we, right now? Because how many congressmen are already serving by that time 20 years?
Right.
Or Strom Thurmond, 864 years. So what do? You put it in place, and you go back and you say, it was a great decision for America on the 22nd Amendment. Let's fix it for everybody else. Now, what happens to the old guys, the guys who've been there, Kevin Brady? Is he going to volunteer and say, yeah, I want to sign up for that? No, of course he's not. But you can take a grandfather clause and you can say to everybody who's been there 6 years and longer, you've been there 6 years, you can stay as long as you want to. We don't care. You stay until the people vote you out of office. But everybody 6 years and younger in office, you are under this new amendment. And it's the new for me, the 28th Amendment is a valid budget amendment that has to be pushed and succeeded with. We have to succeed on running the government. But we create a 29th Amendment, term limits. It's from Congress, the House, the Senate, and the Supreme Court. 19 years, 12 and 12 are the pieces I put out there, but I'm willing to go with anything that shows
19 for the House.
accountability. It's a 12-year for the House, 12 years for the Senate, 18 years for the Supreme Court.
That's too long for the rest.
I'm willing to work with anything down to 6 years. I think 6 years as a minimum has to be in place, but I'll work with anything that goes between 6 and 12.
All right, good deal.
And that's the safeguard. I think that's if you don't get that in place, you don't have the safety.
I
The
like
corruption
that.
will eat your heart.
I think the Supreme Court probably ought not be there that long.
Yeah.
They make some pretty tough decisions. Lifetime is a compromise with 18 years. When you take a lifetime, which is 45 years or something for most of these guys, and 18, I think that's a huge chunk in the right direction. So give me something more reasonable, and I'll vote for it. But it better be a long day. They need a pretty good chunk of time to make some hard decisions, and sometimes they have to make some good hard decisions.
So you answered the question, does the U.S. need all these overseas bases? You said America is a superpower, sole superpower of the world, but is not the world's policeman. So when does the United States become a tyrant where it picks winners and losers overseas, and when is it defending itself?
Those are the tough questions. We have many allies in the world who desperately need the peace and the peaceful trade and the commerce and the existence of their nation because America is simply present. Our presence is a calming influence on the world. It's not now because we're pulling back significantly on many levels of commitments on many different allies. When America pulls out too quickly or too fast, we have Iraq all over again. The only reason Iraq is chaos is because President Obama was absolutely determined for his prophecy to come true, which is, I voted against it. Well, he wasn't in office. If I was in office, I would have voted against it. And then so he said, well, it's working really good. This is really embarrassing to me because if it works, I'm going to look pretty stupid. So what does he do? He pulls all the forces out of Iraq and said, look, it's failing. Well, yeah, why did Japan succeed after we crushed them till they didn't even exist as a nation with 2 atomic bombs and whatever their death toll was, 7 million dead Japanese? Why did Japan and Germany both the same situation, massive death toll, their nations destroyed economically? Why did they become number 2 and number 3 superpowers of the world economically? They were the number 2 and number 3 economies of the world because we never left. They wanted us to stay. They begged us to stay. We worked up agreements for us to stay and become their friends. We built trade partners out of enemies who became the most powerful trading partners of the world. When America reaches out in friendship and extends a hand of fellowship and people say, please do not ever leave us, we've got to find a way for you to stay, America has wanted to stay. I don't see it as an imperial America. I don't think it's an imperial America. I think people have desperately wanted the friendship of the American people. But we can only afford so much, and the answer is $18.5 trillion of debt. And what's a reasonable budget that allows us to stay ready to war and also to maintain a presence where people strongly desire the presence of America to hold a peaceful world together? Without America's strong hand, the world is chaos. And we're experiencing our President Obama, and it's going to get much uglier because he does not hold anything together right now. So clearly, 800 and 900 is out of
So
control.
then what's the difference in that and this world's policeman? I mean, I just heard you say that we're the world's policeman.
And I said the answer was $18.5 trillion. We can't afford it. So you look at your budget like everything. How do you adjust when you can't afford the new car? You drive the old one longer. I mean, all of us have a budget. We live within our budget. We can't afford it. We find out which bases to close, where we have the least need, and where we bring other alliances, like I wrote down in there. How do you bring other alliances in the world to our help, to actually lead with us, to be some part of the follow-on force that helps and relieves us of those responsibilities? We say we can't afford it. When we can't afford it, we can't. We stop.
Okay. Yep.
Okay, what is the government's proper role in healthcare? If you don't support Obamacare, if you don't support whatever, what do you envision if you were crafting the government's proper role in healthcare? What would it be?
All right, so Dale, we go to the freebies right now. So I think the government should give everybody a free phone. I think everybody should give everybody free electricity. I think everybody should have a free car. I think you should have free transportation. I think you should have free education. I think you should have free debts paid. I just got a note this week that told me 80% of my college debt can be reduced because I'm on all the Obama mail-out stuff so I can see what they're doing on the other side. 80% of my college debt can now be reduced. All I have to do is write in and tell them why it needs to be reduced. So my debt's now gone. They can't give you free education. They can just forgive you $40 or $50 or $60,000 worth of debt on the program. The freebie piece is destroying many of our ethnic groups in America and is clearly destroying this great nation. I don't think that the government has any role in providing health or health care. I don't think it should have a health care role. In fact, I am so strongly against it that as coming from the Veterans Administration side of the House, I see what free government health care does. Free government health care is pathetic. I think it is the worst health care provided to American veterans. I think it is horrible. If you walk into a line and you sit there all day long with 56 to 74 people who are sitting in the lobby, all of whom are treated pretty disrespectfully by most people who work at the various different counters, not at every VA hospital, but at most of them, and I've traveled the country and the world with U.S. military, you will see that when the government runs anything, including the Veterans Administration hospitals, that you get second tier everything. Everything is second tier or third tier. It is horrible. I don't think the government should provide health care at all. I think we should be a free society, and I think we should suffer a little bit, me included, and I think we should have catastrophic debt. And I think if you have a child who needs medical life-saving, it costs you $47,000, you go bankrupt, you should be grateful to go bankrupt in a nation where you can go bankrupt and save your child's life, and that's okay. I think those kind of sacrifices are wonderful. I think that's what makes us great, wonderful human beings. We go back to our church group and ask for help. We do fundraisers for each other. The government stays out of healthcare. I don't see a free healthcare plan anywhere in my horizon. I think it is destructive to America, and the VA needs to end its healthcare program, and it needs to come out like a whole separate plan for that. You can talk about that later.
Okay, Bob?
What's the proper relationship between the United States and the United Nations?
Okay, so America can't be the world's policeman. We need some help on the world stage. And if we don't build relations and alliances, then we are stuck trying to provide the world's policeman job all by ourselves. It is critical that we maintain some kind of a NATO, some kind of United Nations, because the world is a very dangerous place. And if we don't have some means of communicating, we fight instead of talking. And I think that is a terrible answer. We should have skilled diplomats who know how to communicate with words, and we have a powerful military to back up when it's time to go to war, but not war because we can't talk, ever. there always has to be a conduit to try to diffuse the cost of human life, the carnage of my sons' lives, because I have 2 sons contracted to be in the United States military. They're going to willingly offer their lives to this country because that's what we do in the Dean family. But when they do that, I want to know that some diplomats on the other side have made a valiant effort on the principal values who we are as a nation. So what is the United Nations' role? As much as we hate the United Nations and fight the United Nations and loathe the United Nations, there has to be some form of a United Nations world capacity to sit together and talk. You know, when it's a Ronald Reagan who's the president and we've got a great ambassador down there, the United Nations is not such a bad place because people fear America and America has a forceful voice for good in the United Nations. When it's an Obama who's the president of the United States and he sends his United Nations ambassador over there, we cringe and we loathe the United Nations. It is a horrible place and the world beats up on us and we lose everything and we're thinking, what are they doing in the United States of America? Get them out of New York, defund the entire thing. It's a political monster when it's in the wrong hands because it starts to eat away at us, the American people, and our rights and our privileges, and there is a clear effort to destroy American sovereignty by many in the United Nations who would like to destroy the sovereignty of America. But I think we have to have a conduit, and I think it has to be an open door, and I think you have to be able to talk and communicate before you kill each other.
Well, the United Nations has never been on our side, though. Not since this has existed.
I think strong ambassadors under strong American presidents, we get a very powerful voice and people fear America and they respect our word. And I think they respect our ambassadors. Strong presidents, American presidents. That's not a George W. Bush. That's not a strong president. Difference of opinion. I think they do. When it's Ronald Reagan, I think they fear us and respect us great in the United Nations.
When did you retire from the Army?
I retired in December of 2012.
2012. All right.
But you got active duty in like 5 or something, huh?
I'm sorry?
You were on reserve duty then?
No. When December the 12th was December the 1st of 2012 was my last day on active duty, and I have not been a part of the United States military since then.
Okay, so you had a stretch as a reservist somewhere in there?
That's correct. So I started off, I enlisted when I was 27 years old in the United States Army at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri.
Okay.
That was a reservist, and I switched active duty.
How long do you think that it would be an appropriate length of time to serve in the House?
So I've tossed out a 12-year. I think it's easy if you say the United States Congress should serve 12 and 12. That's 12 for the House and 12 for the Senate. I am willing to go down to 6. But I think at some level, if you do not have some level of experience on how to run that machine, it becomes a horrible, horrible organization. It's bad enough when we get bad leadership there, but so if you serve for 6 years in the House, that means your speaker is going to be 4 years in when he becomes a speaker, and that means all your leadership is 4 years in. I don't think they function. I mean, they don't function very well on many different levels right now. I think you've got to get some level of functionality. Organizations as complex as the United States House of Representatives, I think, have to have some level of capacity to function. So I've thrown out 12.
Okay.
I think it'll come between 6 and 12 will be the answer that we could actually get. When I can get this thing passed and grandfather and some others, I think 12 years for the House, 12 years for the Senate. I think it becomes Congress, House and Senate, Congress, 12 years. Supreme Court, 18.
Okay.
We'll put those bargaining chips on the table and run with them.
Brady is the head of the Ways and Means Committee now.
Yes.
Do you think that that will increase his possibility of winning the election, or what do you
Sure.
see?
I think he's going to get another $40 or $50 million if he gets into a special runoff. When we take him into a runoff, when he gets less than 49.9% of the vote, or less than 50, and he gets the 49.8 or whatever he gets in this election, he will be a little bit panic-stricken and money will start to roll because he's chairman of the House Ways and Means. So there are many, many people who have invested in him over a long period of time to have access to him who will not want to lose their investment over 20 years, guaranteed. When he gets into special runoff, it's going to get much worse. The panic will set in a little deeper, and there will be tens of millions of dollars that roll. I don't think it helped David Dewhurst when Ted Cruz did the same thing. I think it's a powerful piece for we the people, and we'll see how that works out. But I think the history's on our side right now in the last 4 years, that when your name is Eric Cantor, and you're running for a majority leader of the House, and you have a ton of money, and you outspend your opponent somewhere between 40 to 1 or 100 to 1, depending on whose numbers you're looking at, that the American people rise up and say, we're done with you. You're not a leader, and you're destroying this nation, and you're gone. So yes, millions of dollars, tens of millions even, will possibly roll in.
Okay.
This question was from Ken Vaughn, he's not here. It's a little lengthy, so bear with me. You have suggested that you support the penny plan that we talked about earlier. You kind of touched on it, so we're going to dive in a little bit deeper here. this plan sounds nice because the cuts sound small, but the 1% cut in nominal spending per year is actually 3 to 4% cut in real spending, once you account for inflation, etc. The penny plan results in about a 20% cut in real federal spending over a 6-year phase-in. You also claim that you would exempt military spending, and you imply you would increase the spending. The problem is that the numbers do not add up with drastically changing entitlement law. If the penny plan was implemented in your first budget cycle, the cuts would be complete in 8 years, 7 years, roughly 2023. If you did not cut that military spending, and we assume that the U.S. continues to pay interest on debt, the penny plan would eliminate all other discretionary spending. That's congressional salaries, ambassadors, electricity for buildings, NRA, Nuclear Regulatory Agency, Department DOT. And you'd have to cut entitlements by more than 26%. Are you proposing to cut Medicare and Social Security by 26%? If not, how do you plan to realize the penny plan?
Okay, so the challenge, anytime you put numbers on the table with a congressman or a House of Representatives, is the numbers either add up or don't add up, depending on who you're talking to, because they're throwing out a lot of different numbers, and numbers go in every different direction. So statisticians don't lie, statistics don't lie, but statisticians do. You can bend the truth to pretty much say whatever you want to on whatever amount is. So you just presume an amount of budget of what's going to be for the military defense, because I said I would exempt the military from the 1% cut, the mandatory cut, because I think right now we're in a desperate situation right now. We're almost to pre-World War II levels right now, which is a dangerous time for us. And we're at war in a desperate way right now. Of course, you guys watched today when a Russian military aircraft right now is shot down by 2 Turks. 2 Turkish F-16 Strike Eagles, where'd they get those from? You know, those are American-made F-16 Strike Eagles with American armaments on board that we trained the Turks to be able to fire. How close is it to another world war? And what's the cost of America and lack of preparedness? I think there are people who want America to not be prepared, and I think that there are people who want America to be hurt badly on the world stage, and I think they sit in the White House today, and they have an agenda, and they're trying to desperately harm and or destroy America. I think you maybe saw Newt Gingrich just came out endorsing the very same words that Vice President Dick Cheney said just 4 months ago now, when he said this president is the worst president in American history. He willfully is trying to harm this nation. Those are real pieces. So do you risk the military as a part of the mandatory cut? I don't think you can ever do that unless you want to risk this nation ceasing to exist. Does it mean we continue to grow 23% a year or 87% a year or some astronomical crazy number? That doesn't mean any of those things. It means that the military has an escape clause because we simply have to. You cannot cap the military, so the president has the discretion of some piece in there that says when this nation is in trouble, we're not going to risk the nation over the small piece. So I just say, when you go back and look at the numbers, you go with those 79 guys who've already sat down and said we support the penny plan. You implement something that takes us in the direction of starting to cut budgets, and then you look at the 2 or 3 programs you can get rid of. You got to do something. You can't wring your hands. Most people I know just do like this and say, I'll cut 4 programs or 5 programs. And that's not ever going to happen. I'm not seeing it in my lifetime. I think a 1% cut, everybody can swallow a 1% cut. We just don't have the leadership to get through right now. The leadership is keeping the war drum going and take it to the media and tell what you're doing and tell why we have to make these cuts and how bad is 1% across the board. And people get used to that and they start to swallow it. And we do 1% a year, it actually builds. It's the momentum is huge. That's what the 7.6 trillion comes from. Numbers don't add up, numbers do add up. I would just say it's all the devil's in the detail as always. I'm sorry, yes.
There have been many mass shootings in the recent years. If anything, what should the federal government do to solve this problem?
Okay, so President Obama is huge on what can I do to stop the slaughter of Americans with gun violence in America. He claims his numbers are 300 mass shootings of 400 people in the last years. He doesn't tell where they all come from. I did my research, and I think that you guys read it in your piece there, but Chicago has 4 neighborhoods that all by themselves lead the world in per capita murders, and they're from Chicago. And it leads Honduras and Uruguay and whatever those other 2 nations. You just pull up the most devastated nations on the earth of mass murder, and there's charts that'll show them and show you really quickly. But Chicago's neighborhoods are worse. So why does Chicago have the worst of anybody? So you can take the Chicagos and fan them out across America and show what a terrible nation we are. Or we can look at Chicago and say, The foremost leading per capita mass shooting deaths in America is in Chicago neighborhoods. Why do they have those? Where they have the most restrictive gun laws in America. And why can you not buy a gun anywhere in Chicago? Because President Obama and his ilk decided a long time ago that the Second Amendment about gun ownership does not apply to Chicago, and they're going to restrict the people from purchasing guns there. And they're going to do all that they can to make sure that law-abiding citizens do not have guns in their hands. And so people die in massive numbers because they can't protect themselves. So how do you solve that piece? I think the Second Amendment is part of the answer to this thing. If you can protect yourself, and if criminals, ugly, vile creatures on the earth who seek to harm and maim their fellow man, know that you are armed, just like the lady who did President Obama's poetry on his first speech, Maya Angelou, when she did her, she's 79 years old and she just shot 2 bullet holes through the door. Was it 7 months ago now? She threw 2 bullet holes with a .45. I don't even know how she held it without it kicking her hand off. She shoved through the door after she gave a warning, I'm in here and I'm armed. And the guy kept coming through the front door and she shot 2 holes through it and the guy ran off. It was a big issue. She's a peace-loving poet, a poetess. And she said, gun ownership matters to me, I'm going to be safe. I think you simply say, arm yourselves. It's an American right to protect yourself, and it is a wonderful freedom from the terrors of gunlessness when only the outlaws have guns, although we've said that for 100 years now. It doesn't seem to get any resonance.
Okay. So it sounds like you're willing to tolerate some involvement with the United Nations. We're 2 or 3% of the world's population, and we pay a quarter of the expenses. What's a fair portion of that expense for us to pay? 2 or 3%?
Yeah, the easy answer would be 2 or 3%. Of course, the reality is we're the superpower, $17, $18 trillion economy of the world right now, which is phenomenal. How the Lord has blessed this great nation through freedom and through freedom's blessings. So the price of peace is conversation through diplomats. The price of war is horrific. If we go to a World War II and kill 80 million people on the globe like we did the last time in World War II, then what's the price of 80 million dead and the devastation of cities and nations and the carnage and the bloodshed and the horrors of war? And I think there is a price to be paid for America that it's okay that we assume a larger peace. I loathe the United Nations. I hate many of the decisions that come out of there. I see them as somebody trying to destroy the United States of America. I think that is their agenda. But it also is a forum for us to be able to talk instead of slaughter. And I think as long as we talk, we will avoid a lot of slaughter and carnage that is completely unnecessary when you have some means, some pre-established forum that lets you communicate. So my answer is get Republicans elected to office, have strong leaders who send strong ambassadors over there with a strong military presence, and America says these are great answers for the world and people respect our position and they back away. Diplomacy through strength is a powerful tool to avoid carnage.
So is the answer 70 or 33 or 3? I didn't hear the answer.
There wasn't one.
So let me be clear. The answer is we need to pay a larger percentage than all the other countries of the world, I think, and that is acceptable because we will pay in war a far greater price. I think 10 to 20 times whatever we're paying right now will be the cost of war when we go.
Well, that's if we put the whole bill. And you know, one of the problems we have when we go to countries that are rich, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, those places, we spend our money when they have their own money. Do you think that when we go to rescue countries like that, that we should at least expect them to pay their own expenses?
Absolutely. Yes. And the
They
way
can
to,
pay the United
without embarrassing them too much, depending on how strong of an ally they are. So it depends on how strong our alliance is and what is their condition at the time that they have the means to work with us to say, we're friends, we want to keep you, and you guys have a debt to pay, and you owe your piece of this chunk of the pie. And you do some stronger diplomacy that says to stay friends, we need some, you got to do more than what you're doing. So what are you rich in? What are your things you're rich in? And you need to put some of those things on the table. And that's part of your friendship with America. And most of them would be willing to work with that to maintain the friendship of a strong, respected America, not a despised and weakened America.
If we ask. Problem is we don't ask, huh?
Well, I think we have leaders who don't ask. Yeah, I think we need leaders too often in the White House who simply demand it behind the doors, behind the closed doors, with our ambassadors and with our diplomats. And this is a part of our relationship. And you simply put your fist on the table and say you're going to do this part.
Right?
So which would you consider to be worse for America? For the American people to depend on the government, or for 20,000 Aryans to come in to our country?
Syrians?
Syrians.
Yeah, I thought the Aryans were coming back. Like, oh, gosh.
Sorry.
Nazis are getting pretty rough over there in Germany again.
They're being chased out.
Might be better.
The last numbers I saw on refugees were that 73% of all refugees go on government dependency and stay there for an indefinite amount of time. If you're a Democrat, you want refugees in America because once they go on dependency of the government, they're more likely to vote a Democrat. Once they're on dependency, the government feeds them and cares for them. That usually becomes a Democrat vote. So if you're Obama, it's a no-brainer. Get all the illegals here because mostly they'll go on dependency of some form and they'll vote for you. Get all the immigrants who are here, possibly here. Don't go through intelligent, well-educated overstayers with their H-1B visas. Don't go for those guys because they might actually vote the other way. But go for the ones who are most likely to vote Democrat and then just scream bloody murder at all those terrible Republicans who are denying them the kindness and the obligation of America, having never denied any immigrant ever to come to America. What's the greatest ugliness? To deny, America, I don't see how we ever got in the situation right now. I don't know how anybody's supporting this anywhere in the House, any Democrats or Republicans, ever. Although 2 Republicans supported it, as I read their votes. Why would you ever bring Syrians here when we know that there are Syrians trying to kill Americans? There's no reason to. We can protect them, we can feed them, we can provide medical for them, we can provide security for them with 400 Marines in Syria, set up a security perimeter, provide medical care, and let them have security in their own country because we care. I don't think there's any reason ever to bring any kind of a threat into this nation if we know there's a threat there. There's no reason. You don't bring a vile, filthy murderer off the street into your home because you're a Christian and you say, God said for me to care for this guy, so I'm going to bring him to my house and let him sleep here overnight. And then you're all dead the next morning. No, you donate to your church and ask them to go down to the local food pantry and donate sufficient money to make sure those guys are having a meal, and you feel good about your service because you did the respected channels. I think we can do that with Syria without having to go down the ugly road, which is allowing Syrian refugees into the United States.
So what I heard your answer was, okay. Time.
No Syrian refugees in America.
Okay, penny plan or not, obviously we gotta do something about the budget, and yours is, equal pain for everybody, except the military. And I think almost everyone agrees with you that we need a strong military, maybe they should be an exception. But you can build a case for an exception, but then pretty much everybody else wants to build a case for their exception as well, why they ought to be an exception. Let me just give you one example and have you address one specific example. Okay, penny plan, Social Security. Let's say they're $20 billion for however many retirees. Retirees increased by 10%, and they're all dipping into the same $20 billion. So now there's less to go around, and of course the problem compounds. How do you deal with that?
So Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid are all exploding all around us right now, and no one has an answer, as far as I know, including Paul Ryan, and certainly not President Obama, of how they're going to pay for any one of those 3 into the future unless we simply raise taxes on a massive level, and there's more taken out of your paycheck, and there's more taken out of your paycheck, and there's more taken out of your paycheck, while you're trying to phase back each person, maybe receiving a little less of the benefit or a higher deductible. Those are complex problems for America, who has gone down a road of entitlements. And once you say you're entitled to whatever it is, you're entitled to, it's not Social Security for people who invested that have caused a problem or people who have money taken out, it's Social Security for everyone else who is now in there, in the system of people who've never paid into it or have only paid a very tiny amount into it. So you take a socialist idea and then you bargain it to the American people on a 1% effect or a very minimal effect and a minimal intrusion. The camel gets his shoulders and his whole hindquarters in, and now you've got a monster in the tent. And we're not sure how we're going to keep it solving. I don't hear Kevin Brady, Chairman of the House Ways and Means. I don't hear anybody saying they're going to find an answer. We're going to find an answer. But no, for years, I'm 54 years old. I've heard this ever since I've been aware of politics, that we're going to find an answer. It's desperate. We got to do it. But what's the answer? So I think the other side of that coin, besides just the numbers and making the numbers all add up, and here's how we're going to do it by taking more payroll deductions out of everybody's payroll, and we're going to pay for this, is you start on the other side of the coin, which is, this is the United States of America, and there are no entitlements. You're not entitled to anything except the fundamental rights and protections of the United States Constitution. And you start to walk backwards a plan that we have a dependency problem in the United States of America, and if you go too rapidly on this thing, you can have pandemonium on the streets and you can have civil war. But you can start a process from the bully pulpit of the United States of America saying, Do you want to stay dependent and poor the rest of your life because that's what 4 generations has done to you? And you slowly teach that principle, and you change the mindset and the culture of American people. But it takes all your 8 years of presidency. Not congressman. A president of the United States has to do this. No, I don't think any congressman can solve this problem that we've come to right now. I think it takes a president of the United States in his bully pulpit, and a strong president.
Okay, but what I hear your bottom line is everybody's got to do more with less because cost of living continues to go up and their income is going to continue to go down. And we just have to tighten the belt and live with it.
The income will have to go down, and we'll have to live with it until we get a president who's strong enough to say, it's not going to happen anymore. We're destroying this nation, and here's how we're going to get off of it. And I think there's a shame piece that has to go with it that says you're not buying the American dream. If you see, like the school I just came from, I taught for 2 years at the Green Oaks High School in Louisiana, an F-rated campus, 100% black, not one white kid, not one Hispanic kid, not one Asian kid, not one. 4 white teachers in the whole school, I'm one of them, and we're making a difference in kids' lives. These are kids that get up and F-bomb you in your face. They ball their fist and hit you if they can. They get mad at you. They try to knock you down. We have security, 273 security cameras in that building. Nobody goes to the office without a security officer. 5 security officers to escort a child anywhere in the hallway because it's gang-ridden school that is out of control, failing campus. And you see a principal come in there and make a difference in that campus, you think, maybe we can make a difference for these kids. But these are kids who are into a system right now. Those are my kids. Those kids are brought up into a system right now that is destroying their lives. It is the democratic plan right now of entitlement to make sure that they are enslaved to a vote to the Democratic Party, and they will never escape that if we do not provide some kind of, we're talking to you, kids, we're going to change your generation. Because right now, 4 generations of dependency is destroying them. Guaranteed life of poverty. That's what it's done for them. Some of them know this already, but they really need some reinforcement to understand and hear it from people who love them.
Okay, got about 4 or 5 minutes.
We have a problem with illegal aliens here in this nation and definitely in the state of Texas. Would it be better to continue to build the fence that we have going on down here, secure our borders with troops, or stop all of the entitlement programs, all the freebies that we're given to all the illegals that are coming here?
Those are either wars.
However you want to answer.
Yeah. So you're trying to look for a practical answer. What can you do? I think if you're a Democrat, you scream bloody murder, we can't build a wall. That is not a very complex piece for American ingenuity who puts whatever. I mean, man on the moon and builds a Golden Gate Bridge and builds towers that are 130 stories tall and stands up to hurricane force winds of 160 miles an hour. I don't think this is a complex piece. It's not. Many nations have built successfully built a wall. I think you have to simply build a wall because you can't stop. You can't just. We're not stopping it with anything we have right now, and a wall is a very successful tool. And I think the southern border is so horribly out of control right now that a wall is a very reasonable answer. It's whatever the cost is, security of the southern border becomes vital. So I think we simply do it, and maybe it takes us 7 years to get the whole wall in place. But while we're building the wall, we're securing all those other pieces. And the security of the wall for all my National Guard friends, I never pulled duty on the southern border, but many friends who did, is observation. All it is observation, spotting, and calling in level authorities to come round up what you're observing. If you have enough spotters down there, day and night, because we can see through the night, we can see from above, we have UAVs, unmanned aerial vehicles up above flying. You can see everything that's happening down there. You can see every illegal coming across the border, unless they're going through tunnels, underground, which is a whole other piece, or unless they're coming on visas, which is the 40% who are also staying. It's a quagmire that's gotten so porous right now. But the wall is a vital piece of it. That is one part of it. And then every other piece that you nail into place that says we're stopping the visas right now that are being out of control. Every one of you who are here illegally, we're starting a deportation. I don't think that's unreasonable. I know it's mocked by the left, but how hard is it to say we're starting a deportation process? We might only deport 23,000 this first year, but next year we're going to double and we're going to get to 46,000. And the next year we're going to hit 57,000. We're going to have goals for deportation, and you will have due process, and you'll have a chance, and we're not going to tear any family apart because we're going to let your children go home with you, and they will be American citizens who are born here. We couldn't stop it, and they now are granted U.S. citizenship, and we're going to keep going together. And you're going to go home, and we will make sure that you have a chance to stand at the back of the line and ask for permission to come to the United States of America. I think you can do that. I don't think those are really hard. I think it just takes the will of a president and a strong Congress to say, let's do this. And we stop the illegal immigration because it's illegal.
Okay, all right.
United States and Israel have been friends for many years. What's your position? What would you do as a congressman to try to change what Obama has done with our relationship?
Okay, so the relationship, more than anything, is a personal relationship with the president and prime minister. Those are huge pieces of it. A very friendly Congress is obviously another part of the answer. When one president comes in who has a very pro-Islamist belief, and his name is Barack Hussein, and his father is Muslim, and he was raised, at least for many years of his life, in the Muslim world, and says the call to prayer is the most beautiful sound that he knows. Clearly, we have a man who has a very strong interest in portraying himself to the Muslim world as the Muslim friend, the greatest friend the world has ever seen from an American president. I think that's his legacy. I think that's what he's decided his legacy when he leaves. He has some other agenda piece he might not accomplish, but he can at least accomplish one. The Muslim world can say, what a jerk and what a softy, and we beat him up and spit on him, but he was sure trying to be nice to us, wasn't he? Because, of course, they despise you for softness and kindness. That's just the jihadist world. But for him, it's a chance to reach out to them and show kindness and goodness. To do that, he has to tread on Benjamin Netanyahu. So Benjamin Netanyahu and Israel take the punch to the right, to the left, to the face, to the knee, to the groin, whatever he can hit them with to belittle our Israeli allies and partners on a world stage, because he thinks it brings him greater credibility to a Muslim world that he so desperately wants to appease.
Maybe 80 virgins.
So offer more virgins to the Muslim jihadists who die on the holy quest. I think, the United States Congress has an obligation to challenge the president, to push back to the president, to dare, well, then we did. When the Speaker of the House, in one of his rare moments, John Boehner actually had one moment I cheered for him there in the last year, was when he said, Benjamin Netanyahu, you're invited, and the president said, how dare you? And Speaker Boehner said he's still coming because he's our friend. And he spoke to the joint house. It was embarrassment to the president, and the president was furious and livid because it insulted the president's shame that he was trying to place on Benjamin Netanyahu, and the Congress welcomed him with a rare gift, speaking to both houses.
Last set of questions here. Who do you most identify with in Congress right now?
If you're doing both houses, if you have the House of Representatives, it's my favorite of all congressmen right now is Louis Gohmert, Captain Louis Gohmert, Judge Louis Gohmert out of Tyler, Texas. I think he is wonderful and a great role model and a mentor. And when elected, I will seek him out as a friend to seek some of his counsel and advice of what he did his first 2 years to be able to become whom I respect greatly as a man of honor and a man of courage and a man of integrity, and represent great conservative values. On the Senate side, Ted Cruz, if he's still there, if he's not my president, which I expect he will be, I believe he's going to be elected president of the United States. So if he's gone, when Ted Cruz leaves, Alan West is here now living in Texas. He will run for that office and he will win that position. So he will become a close friend and mentor from the senatorial side when Alan West is seated in the United States Senate to replace Ted Cruz. I think those two pieces are very likely to happen. But I think you can't go there without saying, who am I going to seek out to get some experience and some wisdom from that I can sit down and say, look, I need a little help. You won't remember me, but I remember you, and here's why I was deeply impressed with your life and the way you have served your country, and I would like to learn from you, and I'd like to be a student.
All right, and the best Supreme Court justice and the worst.
How many can I put on the worst list? Okay, so my best Supreme Court justice is not the Chief Justice. It's going to be probably Antonio Scalia. I love the way he rules on many wonderful decisions. I think he's very clear and very vibrant, very powerful in his articulation of his systems, very challenging to the other side. And Sotomayor, I don't know, you name it. You can put any one of the last 3 appointments on the Obama administration. We'll just go put Sotomayor.
Okay.
It's been terrible, terrible, terrible.
All right, so this is the last part. If you want to take up to 5 minutes to close.
Oh, well, thank you for taking the time this evening. What Diane and I, a couple days ago, we just got down and prayed together and said, Father, it's been wonderful to be on the road. We have met so many wonderful, grateful people everywhere we go who thank us for running and are so grateful we're running, grateful that we came to visit them in their little town, or the little 73 people or 62 people who came out to a little chili dinner and back in the hole in the woods, where nobody's ever been before. Kevin Brady's never been, no other congressional candidate's ever been. And you meet them and you say hi to them and you warmly welcome them. And they get to meet my wife, Diane. I think many of the ladies especially appreciate getting to meet Diane. And some sense of this is not just a blah, blah, blah politician up here speaking. Maybe I really am not a politician. Maybe there is hope that there's not one more politician who's already held office, who knows how to do the blah, blah, blah speeches, who's just up there talking is going to go and do the same thing that every other politician. Because many people say, Colonel Dean, gosh, you give me such hope, but what's going to keep you from becoming just like the rest of those scum suckers up there? They're horrible. You're going to become like them. How do you not do that? And I say, I don't know how to not. I can tell you 27 years of my life is a pretty good picture of who I am as a man, and then I've loved and defended the Constitution for 27 years with my life as an infantry soldier. That's a little bit different than your average schmuck who stands up here and says, I want to run, and believe me, because I do business in the community and I'm going to make a lot of money off of this, and my feathered nest will look pretty nice for me down the road. So it's a little bit different when you're serving the United States military. I think that piece gives some courage and confidence for people to say, maybe I will trust you. Maybe service like that long, maybe it is selfless service for most of you guys. Maybe it's worth the gamble. And then I tell them every new Congress that I'm elected, I will put the 12-year or whatever we work out term limits on the table with everything that I can work behind the scenes to get the 6-year compromise, or the which is 6 years or more, and you get to stay as long as you want to, but everybody else, so it's in place. So we get something that says all of us, starting effective now, we're all going to be out of here. And so people maybe start to believe again. I think people never heard that before. Why? Because I've never read that from anybody. I didn't pick that up. That's me reading the Constitution thinking, what's a great answer for Andre Dean? If somebody else has proposed that idea, I don't know who they are because I've never met them. That's me saying, there's a way to say we the people own this place and we're going to get you out of office by law. And somebody is going to put in law because he's not a politician. He is a warrior. He is a lover of the Constitution. He's a defender of freedom. And he has 3 grandsons who need to have a beautiful American life. And I want my 3 grandsons to have a beautiful American life. And that's why we're in the fight. And so in tears the other day, Diane said, but honey, this is, it's consuming our lives. It is so hard. And sometimes people are very ungrateful. And you look at the financial stress it's putting our whole family under. And I said, you're right, honey. I said, what do you want to do? She said, I want to keep going. But this is hard. Right? So it is hard. And it's a price our family's paying. It's a terrible price that we're paying at many different levels. And it's not something that I think many people have said, Andre, you really shouldn't do this. I mean, even people from church, like this is a horrible decision because politicians are so scum mean. All of them are. I'm disgusted with all of them. And of course I hear that more than ever now. Is all of y'all, I need to fire all of y'all. And I said, well, hold on. It's not y'all. Y'all has not done anything. I'm running for office. Well, yeah, but you're going to become just like them. So how do we regain confidence? I think somewhere you get men and women of honor who have a track record of honor and integrity and some kind of proven leadership that doesn't just sit up there and waffle on the hill and try to feather their own nest and actually does, like a Ted Cruz, who gets up there and in 2 short years, I don't know whether you guys like him or not, I know that he actually is one of the very few politicians who says it, then does it, and delivers on it, and is articulate about it. And I think he loves God, and he loves the Constitution. Those things matter to me. I think those make great public servants.